now sponsored by UNC Lenoir Healthcare. UNC Lenoir Healthcare, formerly known as Lenoir Memorial Hospital, is a nonprofit hospital located right here in Kinston. The hospital is licensed for 261 beds and serves the residents of Lenoir, Greene, and Jones counties. The hospital is staffed with over 100 physicians. The hospital offers inpatient, outpatient, and preventable health care services. Thank you to UNC Lenoir Healthcare for being our sponsor, and welcome everybody to the Flourish Hill podcast. I'm Graham Hill.
I'm Junior Smith III.
And alongside us today is another Kinston High guest. Now, before we start, I want people to think that we're starting to get biased with Kinston High guests here, all right? Look, anybody out there from Greene Central, South Lenoir, Parrott, even you said.
Bethel Christian, Jones Sr., Aiden Grifton, hey, by all means, come through.
Be sure to message us on Twitter and let us know if you want to come on to the show and you have interesting stories to talk about, because it will definitely make our jobs easier, especially on me with school being back in and you with just the busy schedule that you have with BJ having you running around the counties to do different stories.
I don't want to talk about it.
Be sure to message us if you want to come on to the show. But our guest today is former Kinston High quarterback. He played basketball. His senior year was part of the JV team freshman and sophomore year. Actually had history in baseball and track too. Ladies and gentlemen, Thomas Vermillion.
Hey, everybody. Appreciate you having me on.
And like we said, we got to have Thomas on because he is home for college break, and he's actually been the team manager for the Baylor football team. So we're very excited to have him on today. We're actually going to kind of change up the scheme of the show just a little bit. We're still going to hit on Eastern Carolina Conference basketball games,
Right.
but we're kind of going to talk about a little bit of college athletic sports since we have a college student on the show with us and someone that's been up close and personal, especially with college football. And, I mean, Baylor just is also just a big college school in general with sports. So, Thomas, just tell us a little bit, what's it been like to be at Baylor so far?
Oh, yeah. So I came in my freshman year, showed up July 29th. They called me 2 weeks before, asked if I could be there because I applied for the job, the equipment manager job, back in the spring, but didn't hear back from until 2 weeks before the report date because somebody quit right before they had to show up. So they were like, hey, can you move to Texas in 2 weeks? I was like, that's a little month earlier than I thought, but yeah, I'll get there. And so I moved down and just got to know the guys a little bit, started working for the team, and that was after all the Art Browse stuff. And so his whole staff was there, but he had just been fired in that spring. So I was there with Jim Grobe, who's a Wake Forest legend, and it was great. And that's honestly kind of how I got the job because a bunch of my family's big Wake Forest fans, and so I knew who he was really well, knew he was a great guy. So I wanted to work for him, and so I didn't necessarily try for the equipment manager job. I told them I just want to be in the program somehow, and so they finally hit me up and got the job. And since then, I've ball boyed every game since then, and all the past 3 years. And I've been on the away sideline all this year, so it's been cool getting to see the away coaches and get to be around them and see how their teams run. But it's also been really fun, getting to be on the sideline for my game or the Baylor sideline. Because, I know all the players now and the coaches, and so it's cool seeing how the ins and outs of everything, how it runs.
Now, before I get into asking about some of the teams and some of the players that you've had the opportunity to see, like you said, like you kind of alluded to, this is before Art Browse, kind of getting the tail end of that, and then heading to Jim Grove. How chaotic was that scene out there in Waco? It was
honestly, Jim Grove was probably the best guy for the job. He came in and he didn't really interfere with anybody's stuff. He basically handled special teams, and he let Art Brow's son handle the offense, and then Phil Bennett handled the defense just like they had been for the past couple of years. And so it ran really smoothly. Everybody got along real well. Everybody was really upset about everything that went down because, I'm not going to get into details, but it was just there was some stuff that wasn't quite right going on. And so none of the coaches would wear Baylor logos. They would flip all their Baylor stuff inside out. It was kind of like the team versus the school. But within the football organization, everybody was just real relaxed. They knew they were all gonna get fired after the season, so they were just kind of having fun, just kind of trying to make the last season worth it.
Well, so was it your main intention to go to Baylor to be, the equipment manager? Is that what you felt your heart desired to go down there and do, or did you just decided, you know what, I think I'm gonna try for a shot, to be the equipment manager?
That's kind of what happened. I already decided to go to Baylor, and I was like, well, what am I gonna do with my time? I need to be involved with something. I'd never there was one season in high school that I didn't play a sport, and I almost lost my mind. And so I knew I had to be involved with something. I knew I wanted it to be sports, and so I just reached out to whoever I could, and finally I got a little lucky on that one. So
You weren't trying to throw that thing though?
I did. So like they weren't. I tried to get in touch with the coaches, but because they were all leaving after that year, they weren't holding any walk-on tryouts, and so I kind of came in a bad year. But I did try. I did reach out to a couple of the coaches.
I was about to say, I mean, a lot of times you hear stories about these managers that come in and then they get the walk-on opportunity, go out there and sling the ball a little bit, and of course you had the experience, being the quarterback at Kent State. It's funny. My first ever interview that I ever conducted was with this guy right here because it was for my project for one of my classes I had sophomore year at North Lenoir.
Wow.
Where we had to go out and interview a local, athlete, and of course the Kent State football team was making the state championship run, and I went over to Thomas's house because he lived right down the street from me. About what was it, like three houses down?
Yeah.
So, and of course, Mac and Jake Morris were neighbors
Right
too.
between us.
Yeah, right between us. It was a fun time on Graham
And then,
Drive.
speaking of guests, Jeremiah Fields is always over there too.
Yeah.
We ran that block, that's for sure.
Let me look, I gotta ask you because Jeremiah gave us his insight on last week when it came to the team. I mean, just kind of tell yours as far as 15-0, something that you guys had never done before.
I mean, it was surreal, just like that whole season, especially since most of our games were won in the fourth quarter. I mean, it was so fun. It was one of the most fun times of my life. Like, I look back at pictures and just see my whole family taking pictures of my whole family after the game, and just everybody was there. Everybody was having a good time, and it was honestly the most fun times of my life. We were like those guys. Like, I mean, they are my brothers. Like, we're still best friends to this day, and so it was really fun.
I've got to say this. I mean, I've been doing this since 2008 as far as covering football. That was one of the best teams that I had ever covered. I mean, not just as far as records, but just personality, just going out to the games, high drama. I mean, there was a lot of positive qualities that I have to say that you guys provided. I mean, whether it was you, Jeremiah, Anthony Berry, Daquan Waters, Jaquan Artis, Bailey Blake, I mean, Tavon Hearns. I mean,
it was a squad.
Yeah, I was about to say the squad.
It was just a squad of players on that team. And I know you're definitely having fun at Baylor. What's your major, or what are you majoring right now?
Yeah,
down
so
there?
I started out as a business major, and I was just sitting in class one day, and I was like, this is just not for me, just corporate business stuff. And so I switched it to recreation ministry because I really thought about going into ministry for a while. It was like some type of sports ministry. But I think I'm really passionate about. I finally decided probably the past 6 months that I really want to work like in college sports. At least when I get out of college, maybe not college sports after that, but like I want to start out in college sports, working in operations. It's kind of like the stuff that happens upstairs. I'm more downstairs doing the grunt work with the equipment team right now. But we work hand in hand with the operations staff, and they just basically get everything done for the football program off the field. And so I feel like that'd be really fun, and I've seen a lot of that happen, and I do a lot of that. So I'm really excited about trying to get into that after school.
now usually when we talk about college sports, like a lot of course, right here in the South, Carolina Duke is one of the main rivalries, or you might have State and ECU when it comes to football. As far as Baylor goes and the Big 12, kind of what are some of the rivalries out there?
So the rivalries out there, obviously, you got Oklahoma, Texas. That's a big one. The Red River rivalry. That's a big one. And then like with Baylor, our big rival is TCU, and just kind of two Christian schools. Two Christian schools going at it, and TCU's kind of really strayed away from their Christian beliefs, so we always give them crap about it. And but that definitely we definitely have a lot of hate for TCU.
sorry to any Longhorns fans or
and Texas.
I definitely doubt that we have anybody from Texas or TCU listening, which you never know.
Yeah, you're right. And it was funny. I was kind of talking to y'all prior to, I happen to have somebody. I mean, I've got Texas ties and everything, and I just happened to meet somebody way back in the day that nearly took my life.
Before we get to that story, because we were talking about that before the podcast, I also want to talk about how we were talking about the Baylor and TCU rivalry, and I alluded to the big brawl that happened last year in the final game. And I remember seeing a tweet, and initially it said, "Look at my boy Thomas Vermillion out there on the field." And what it was, there was a video of a Baylor ball boy, and the brawl is breaking out right in front of him, but yet he's just still standing there, football raised up in the air looking for the ref. And I was like, that's dedication. And I was like, man, look at Thomas being being a diehard ball boy, but you said that wasn't you.
Yeah, that wasn't me. That was one of my best friends, Sam Welch. I was actually just right outside the frame because we have one guy on the line of scrimmage and one guy about 10, 15 yards down the field. So I was down the field. But yeah, so a lot of people asked me if that was me, and it's sad to say it wasn't. But he did a really good job. You know, he stayed strong in the huddle, people all around him throwing fists, and he had that ball in the air ready for the refs. So that was a good job by him.
Myth debunked right here on the Flourish Hill podcast.
Well, look, let's talk about your ties with Texas.
Yeah, I want to hear this.
Yeah, I'm ready to hear this
goodness.
story.
All right, so I was born and raised in Fayetteville, North Carolina. That's where my mom was born and raised, and my dad is actually from Caldwell, Texas. So I've got aunts that are in Austin, Houston. So I know that area pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out to I went out to Killeen, Texas, which is about an hour away from Austin, for my cousin's high school graduation. This is after my freshman year of college at Fayetteville State. And my cousin had a friend that, I mean, she was beautiful. So I mean, of course, I'm gonna try to I'm gonna try to say a word or two, see if I can possibly get things working. And my cousin was blocking, so it's like, come on now. So about a day or two later, I go to this girl's house. It was me, her, my cousin, and the girl's sister. And they're having their girl talk, so I just go to the couch and I was listening to music. Like, I was kind of dabbling in the music, and I had actually put together my first project. So after a couple minutes, the girl taps me on the shoulders like, "Hey, what are you listening to?" I said, "Myself." She thought I was playing, so I said, "No, I make music." She said, "Let me listen to it." I was like, "No." It's like, "Why not?" "Because I'm listening to it." So she cusses me out. I cuss her right back out just off of instinct. She walks away. I'm looking at my phone, just still listening to my music, not caring about anything, and I feel something on my throat. I look up. This girl had gone to the doggone kitchen and pulled out a butcher knife and had put it to my throat. And was continually cussing.
Wow.
Like, her sister and my cousin, they're both looking at it like, "Put it down. Put the knife down. Put the knife down."
Why didn't you want her to listen to your music, first of all? Like, that's really the main question I have.
Again, I was listening to it. They were having their girl talk.
He was vibing,
I was just enjoying my time just sitting down on that couch because obviously I wasn't going to be able to take this girl out anyway. So it was just like, what's the point? I'm just kind of waiting for them to have their girl talk so we can go to Whataburger or something. But to make a long story short, before I went back to North Carolina, I actually gave her the CD. And then I happened to...
I hope you signed it too.
I did, actually.
Okay, good. Good.
Found her on social media a few years later. We actually became really, really close. She got married last year or 2 years ago and invited me to the wedding. I couldn't go, but yeah, the first attempt of my life. I was 18 years old.
Well, that's definitely a wild story. Speaking of something wild, let's talk about the college football national championship game because I want to get your take on it since we have somebody that's been up close and personal to college football in his years in college. And yeah, Clemson Tigers went undefeated this season, 15-0, and they defeated the Crimson Tide of Alabama by a final score of 44-16 in the college football championship in a game where even if I said Clemson was going to win, I did not expect it to be by that much. So Thomas, let's hear what you have to say about the national championship game.
I'm just like you. I was taken by surprise. It was, Clemson just came out the gate and they took off. And I thought Alabama would. I wasn't sure who was gonna win. I didn't bet on anybody or anything like that. But like, I just knew it'd be a good game. I was set on that fact. It's like, all right, it'll be a good football game. Watch it, get entertained. But what was I entertained? I was not expecting Clemson to do what they did to Alabama. I was loving that. Just coming from North Carolina, ACC guy.
Right.
I thought that was awesome. Not a big Bama guy, so it was nice seeing them get their tails whooped for once.
And I was definitely pulling for Clemson too, just because I wanted it. It just makes the ACC look good as a conference, and especially because I felt like this year, in particularly, they kind of made the ACC look to be the weak conference.
When you got teams like UNC pulling it down,
Yeah.
Because I think ACC only got one slot for a college game day, and it was Clemson versus Boston College. Now, originally, a lot of people thought it was going to be Clemson versus NC State because there was two undefeated teams going into it with the past two matchups being super close. But I'm glad it wasn't because Clemson just beat the brakes off of Alabama. By the way, NC State lost just as bad as Alabama did in the national championship. So therefore,
Alabama
State.
would be NC
No,
State by
I'm
like
joking.
30.
I'm joking.
Wow. There you go.
I'm joking. But seriously, I'm so glad that Clemson won, just because I think it shut up a lot of doubters. That the ACC is weak compared to the ACC, and what's even more crazy is speaking of Texas, I know you hate them, but they were runner ups in the Big Ten, and they absolutely smacked Georgia around in their bowl game. So is the SEC as dominant of a conference that we thought they were in football, or is especially teams like with Clemson and the ACC, are they starting to step up and represent their conference a little bit better?
I feel like a lot of times when you look at the SEC and everything, you have a lot of pundits, you have a lot of experts and media, they hype them up. So when another team like from the ACC or from, the Pac-12 or anybody has the opportunity to face an SEC team, particularly in a bowl game, they've got a lot to prove. And you don't want to give any team additional motivation. That's the reason why Texas was able to pound Georgia the way that Bevo wanted to pound on the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
But I mean, you look at teams like UCF that tried to knock off LSU a year after defeating Auburn. I mean, you look at what Clemson did to Alabama. As time goes on,
What Baylor did to Vanderbilt.
there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
So, I mean, teams want to have the opportunity to play an SEC team because they're already lauded as, quote-unquote, the best conference. And then SEC supporters, they're going to sit back and have their excuses like, oh, well, we beat each other up in conference play. Clemson would have been the second or third best in SEC West. Guess what? They're still national champions. So, I mean, at the end of the day, having that additional motivation to play an SEC team, it's more than enough for a lot of teams. And, congrats to Clemson because during that first quarter, I mean, it was 14-13. I'm thinking, you know what? We're going to have another classic because these teams have played each other. It's the fourth year in a row. At least two of them were classics. The one last year was kind of like, but the way that Clemson just completely manhandled the Crimson Tide was just unbelievable.
And I feel like, with it being round 4 between the two teams, everybody was kind of just like, this is kind of like Golden State versus Cleveland now. Like, we don't really care about that much. And a lot of people just had Alabama to win just because, they were just steamrolling all throughout the season. I mean, Clemson did the same thing, but Clemson started off the game by scoring first off a pick six. And you rarely see Tua throw a pick or I don't know if he even threw an interception this whole year in college football.
I think he threw like 4.
Yeah.
Well, it's very rare that he does. So, when he throws a pick six and it allows Clemson to score first, I definitely was like, that's definitely an eyebrow raiser. And I saw today on Twitter where it was announced by Jalen Hurts' father that if he doesn't win the starting quarterback position this year again at Alabama, that he'll probably transfer and he will be the hottest free agent to ever be in college football.
You know what Nick Saban's saying? He's opened that door and said, here it is, walk through it.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts to Baylor.
He's we got Jalen Hurd last year. We got
true.
the SEC guy last year, so never know. We got a pretty good quarterback right now, though.
But then again, if Jalen Hurts decides to go to a D1 school, he's going to have to sit out a year because of transfer rules. So, could there be the possibility of him going to a D2 and basically being able to start immediately?
Who knows?
I mean, they've seen him play D1 in the NFL scouts. I mean, get one more season, go off in D2. I don't know.
The really scary thing,
that's a hot take.
the scary thing to think about is how Trevor Lawrence still has 3 more years of eligibility before he can think about going to the draft, which is a terrifying idea for many teams in the ACC.
Man, old Ronnie Bass, sunshine, just I don't even know what else to say. I mean, he absolutely demolished Alabama.
Yeah, he definitely is something else, and especially all that he accomplished this year just as a freshman is incredible. Speaking of college sports, let's turn over to college basketball. We got 2 Carolina fans on the podium right now, in Junius and Thomas, and then myself as an NC State fan, and then BJ just sitting over there as a Duke Blue Devil. So it's kind of a weird scenario that we have right now with all these different fans in the room.
Triangle.
Yeah, there you go, the Tobacco Road right there.
There you go.
But I went to the NC State game last night, and Juniors, I'll kind of let you, if there's anything you want to ask me or Thomas yourself about what I saw at the game and what it was like.
How bad was everybody hurt when they saw that Carolina wound up winning that game?
Well, look, everybody was hurt pretty early because Carolina came out and at the first media timeout was leading 14-2. And so it was definitely a slap in the face for us State fans. But I will say this. For it to be the first media timeout and we're already down 14-2, a Mark Godfrey team or even a Sidney Lowe team towards the end of his career at State would have just given up. And that's the thing that I like about so much about Kevin Keats' team is that they did not quit. They held in it. They battled the whole game. I mean, they tied it up multiple times. They just couldn't get past the hump to take the lead. But it was there definitely some disappointment. And walking out with my dad, he was just super calm. Like, he wasn't saying nothing. And I was like, how are you just so relaxed after that? He said, son, I've been a State fan a long time. He was like, I've seen the heights because, of course, he was a junior the year they won the national championship. And he was like, I've also seen the bad. And he said, when it comes to Carolina, I don't get too upset when we lose them anymore because I don't know why or how he does it. Roy always gets his team fired up to play us. And it's because Roy Williams, and he'll come out and say it publicly, he hates losing to State. I feel like he hates losing to State more than he hates losing to Duke.
Which is sad. But, Thomas, go ahead and just kind of give your take about the game.
I want to know, how many turnovers did UNC have? Like, I mean, I feel like State played pretty well and then UNC played pretty bad, but UNC just held on to it just long enough. But, yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge UNC guy anymore since I go to Baylor now, but, like, I was like, what is going on? Like, watching UNC just turn the ball over, rush shots, they just didn't look good. Nothing was clean. But State, I mean, they looked pretty good when I was watching them. They just couldn't quite get over the hump.
Well, Carolina had 23 turnovers to NC State's 13. The big thing that helped Carolina was their offensive rebounding.
Which that's always their big thing. So
yeah, because, I mean, they had those big guys down low in Johnson and May. And Carolina had 51 rebounds to NC State's 33. And
that's Carolina basketball.
Yeah.
Carolina was also just on point with their three-point shooting. They were 40% to NC State's 28. So, I mean, Carolina just, had a great game. And even Kevin Keats said, when you have 13 turnovers against a team like Carolina, it's hard to win. And that's very true.
I will go ahead and say this about NC State. I mean, we definitely had to talk about some high school athletics soon, but I will say this. I had the opportunity to meet Kevin Keats at the John Wall Holly Invitational. Had several interactions with him. Great guy, but the way that he's been able to turn that program around, I mean, you guys have a lot of positives going along. So I don't have anything negative I could say about Kevin Keats.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely done a great job considering that he only had 3 starters returned this year and the rest were all transferred. I mean, I'll take being 13-2 still any day of the week, even though we lost to Carolina. But as Junior said, we got to talk about some of these high school basketball games. We had some games that took place last night as Washington defeated North Pitt by a score of 75-62. And then local games around here, Kinston defeated Aiden Grifton by a score of 75-51. And Junior, just kind of get your thoughts on that game.
That's the Kinston that I was looking to see. I mean, if they can continue to play like this, I mean, we can't really just say that. I could say that Green Central will have some competition at the top.
And also, you were at this game last night doing the story. Green Central defeated West Craven by a final score of 74-65, and now the Green Central Rams are just sitting in the lone spot of number 1 in the Eastern Carolina Conference. And with West Craven losing, it kind of throws the number 3 spot up, for the taking between North Lenoir, West Craven, who's still in the hunt, of course, but Aiden Grifton as well.
I'm going to say this. Watching Green Central, they've actually been kind of scary over the past couple of games because usually you think, they've got Amaje Dodd at 6'7". They got Dante Johnson at 6'5". But their three-point shooting has been absolutely immaculate. They hit 11 threes against North Lenoir last Friday in the game that we covered, and then they had another 11 against West Craven Tuesday. So they've been able to light it up from the perimeter. Hassan Hudson and Jaquil Gay were 2 major benefactors in that game Tuesday against the Eagles. Yeah,
and the thing that's really looking good for Green Central is they're starting to find depth in their backcourt and points off the bench. I mean, in that game that we covered, Green Central's 2 leading scorers weren't even scorers. There were players that came off the bench, and it was I believe it was
It was Kentrell Suggs and Hassan Hudson.
Yep. So, I mean, that's a really good sign for Green Central. That's also a very scary sign for these teams in the Eastern Carolina Conference. But it is now time for predictions. And, of course, we're going to get our guest, Thomas Vermillion's takes on these.
All right.
We got some games that are going on today. South Lenore is traveling to Washington. South Lenore still struggling. They're on a 4-game losing streak, and their overall record is 2-10 to Washington's 4-7. So kind of a game, but let's get your take on it, Junius.
I feel like South Lenore is going to come out strong, but I feel like Washington, a much improved team. I think they only won 1 game last year. I'm going with the Pan Pack.
I'm going to go with Washington, too. I got some buddies that played there, and I've heard pretty good things about that program, so I'm going to go with the Pan Pack as well.
Well, yeah, this Washington program is definitely looking a whole lot better than it did last year, and, of course, they're coming off that big win last night against North Pitt, so I'm going to have to take the Pan Pack, too. Green Central is back in action again as they are having a non-conference game as they're traveling to Bedingfield. Bedingfield is 3-6. Green Central 9-5. Genius, what's your take?
I'm going with Green Central in a route, but they cannot look past the Bruins of Bedingfield because that is a storied program, and also, confidence may be extremely high after being able to knock off West Craven, so they have to watch for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Green Central as well. I mean, Bedingfield, they always played us tight when I was in high school, so I mean they definitely have some talent over there, but definitely going with Green Central.
Bedingfield is a tough team, but Green Central, like I said, they're starting to find depth in their backcourt, and their bench is really starting to come out and score. And if Green Central does that tonight, they'll easily win. And I'm going to take the Rams. And now we'll get to the games that are going on this Friday. As speaking of Green Central, they'll go back into conference play as they'll travel to South Lenore.
I'm going to say Green Central, and South Lenore will be competitive for a quarter, maybe a half, but they don't have the size that Green Central does. I'm going to go with them.
Yeah, I'm going with Green Central as well.
I'm going to have to take the Rams in that one, too, just because, like you said, that height is going to be a problem for the Devils, and I'm sure Amaje Dodd is going to show out. Another big game that's going on this Friday, this is actually going to be interesting. North Lenore is taking on Aiden Grifton. The last time these two teams met was, of course, in that Pitt County tournament where North Lenore kind of showed out against the Chargers. So let's see what you got to say about this game.
Well, this one is going to be tough because the way that the Hawks have been able to move the ball as of late has been something that I've been looking for. They played Green Central tough for a half. They got that big win against Southwest Edgecombe last night, and I'm going to have to go. It's tough because Aiden Grifton has a lot of great pieces as well, even though they're kind of in a slump right now. You know what? I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to say the Chargers. It's going to be a close one, but I'm going to go with Aiden Grifton.
I'm going to go with Aiden Grifton just because fact I can't go with North Lenore.
I think, okay, wow.
Can't bring myself to do that.
Wow. I honestly think the Chargers are going to kind of get redemption on Aiden Grifton. I think they're still going to be a little bit hot after that loss in the Pitt County tournament. As you said, Aiden Grifton's looked pretty impressive as of late. I mean, they had a pretty competitive quarter with Kinston High for a little bit last night, so I'm going to take the Chargers. And then the final game, Kinston will travel to West Craven.
That's going to be a really good game. I mean, West Craven, they have some shooters. They got a couple of big men that can really do some damage. But I'm going to go with Kinston in a tough one. Like if this one goes into overtime, don't be surprised.
You know who I'm going with. The Vikings all the way.
Yeah,
they got a pretty good team this year, and West Craven's a tough place to play, but they always have a pretty good squad. But Vikings are going to pull it out for sure.
I mean, interesting fact, both of these teams are coming to this game with only 3 losses. Of course, that's what it says on Max Preps. And
it is.
Okay. I just want to make sure. But, yeah, West Craven is a tough place to play. I mean, they were looking pretty good the early start of this conference. They've kind of fallen off a little bit. But I think Kinston, is just trying to prove to a lot of people, hey, we're still a team that can make a runner against Green Central and finish first in the conference. And I think they're going to do that tomorrow night and beating West Craven.
We really just agreed all across the board.
Wow. That's history right there. I can't believe that.
Glad I was a part of it.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Thomas. And thank you once again to UNC Lenore Healthcare for being our sponsor. UNC Lenore Healthcare is a nonprofit hospital located right here in Kinston. And, of course, Thomas, thank you for taking time out. I know you're heading back to Waco tomorrow, right?
Morning, yep.
Oh,
wow.
man.
Thank you for spending your last night here with us. And, Junius, I'll let you take away on the outro.
Listen, again, thank you for listening to the Flourish Hill podcast with myself and Graham Hill. Thomas Vermillion, a special guest, and who knows what we're gonna have next week, who we're gonna have next week, and what we'll talk about next week. But it should be interesting.
This has been the 5th episode of the Flourish podcast. Thank you for joining us.